Uh, Man, I'm really, really sorry about the technical difficulties. Anyway, I don't want to dwell on it. Just want to get past it. Anyway, let's continue. I mean,
This, if she does that, you need to do this, blah, 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 blah. And it's all with the goal, the underlying goal of all this, even if the behaviors are what's considered a masculine, oh, just act nonchalant. Oh, act like you don't care. Oh, make six figures. Oh, have six pack abs. Oh, do all this.
this what he's talking about right here. This is the worst advice that you can give a man. The worst advice. Anybody who says that to somebody as advice has no clue what they're talking about, has zero clue what they're talking about. Can you smell a phony? Do you have a keen sense for phonies? Yeah, women do too. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they do. They do. So the only real advice that there is to give is be yourself. Be yourself. That's the most important thing. Because, I mean, me personally, I take after my dad heavily, attitude wise, personality wise, and he's very, shall we say, assertive. And when I was 19 and first started, dating and whatnot, I, this, girls would, it's not they would reject me, but they would be turned off by me or whatever, or turned away, at first they would like me and then I would always say something to screw it up. And I was being myself. That was me. And oh well, But every time that would happen, I would try to adjust something, like something was wrong with me. I would, adjust a quarter turn here, a quarter turn there. And by the time I was 30, I was a total beta. Total beta. Which that's not, I honestly, that's not me. But luckily, I met a woman that basically shook me out of it and said, "Stop lying. Stop pretending. Be yourself. I like you for you." And that had a big effect on me.
Oh, have great
It
energy.
took a long
Oh,
time to
be
get rid of that.
powerful and strong and firm, and yet, but but, but be detached. All this stuff that they tell you, it's all with the intention, the desire to keep
You,
and attract women. That's insane. That's insane because that's the least masculine thing of all.
yeah, yeah. To change yourself for a woman.
The intention
Yeah,
to keep and attract a woman
yeah, yeah,
is
yeah.
the least
That too.
masculine thing
Like you shouldn't
of
care.
all.
They should just tag along because they want to. They should be a hangers on, like a remorade or
And this
something
is
on a
what
shark.
women who get on these videos still don't, they still yet don't understand this. They're not there yet.
They kind of have to be.
They're not even close to there.
They're just along for the
They
ride.
live in a world that don't exist, bro.
Yeah.
They live in La La fairy tale dreamland female world.
Mm-hmm.
But they still don't understand that men no longer care
No,
what they want.
I don't. No, yeah, he's
That's
right.
the whole
I
thing.
don't care one iota.
So you getting on your TikTok, on your Instagram, on your Snapchat, and complaining about all these things that men are and men aren't, and they're not doing this and they're not doing that. You understand that you're you're missing the very nature of a man. You're missing the most
Hmm.
fundamental aspect
Yeah.
of a man, of masculinity.
That's him going his own
which is
way.
masculine don't care. Masculine don't
It
bend.
doesn't matter
It
what you
don't
do.
it don't acquiesce.
Yeah.
It don't succumb.
It does its own thing regardless of what those around it do. And that can be a really hard place. Like I've pretty much been in that place my whole life where you're kind of a bit of an island there.
It don't care what you want. It don't care what the feminine wants because the feminine don't know what it wants. How would the masculine care what the feminine wants if the feminine don't even know what it wants? The feminine don't even see that it don't know what it wants. Only the masculine can see that. The feminine's too chaotic to see that everything that comes out of its mouth, everything that it thinks that it wants, it contradicts in the next sentence or the next sentence or the very next day.
Yeah, that was
It
stupid.
is in constant flux. There is no logical rhyme or reason to it. There is no set point. The whole purpose of the feminine is to test and confuse and to be a check on the masculine objectiveness. It is a form of punishment to the masculine. If the masculine is not as set and as powerful and as resting in its true nature as it should be. If it starts to weaken a bit, the feminine's there to punish it. That's the role of the feminine. The role of the feminine is to gaslight and mirror and deceive, and it's not necessarily an evil thing.
No, it's
Women are
not.
not evil. It's just
They're
they
motivating
are a
you.
necessary check to
They're
keep us who we
motivation.
are.
They're just motivation.
Masculinity wouldn't stay masculinity if there wasn't.
We
a
would not
place-
do shit if women didn't motivate us. We wouldn't do anything. We all know this. We all know this for a fact. That we probably would starve to death. Damn near. They comment on it all the time, how we only have like a folding chair and a TV in our whole apartment. They're not a check, they're a motivation. That's what they are. They're just a motivation.
wasn't a heavy cost and consequence to losing it, to believing the feminine, to believing the chaos, to be buying into it, to be buying into what the feminine wants, as if there is such a thing. As if there is such a thing. There's not. That's the whole point. That's the whole point, that you have to see that. You have to see that there is no thing that the feminine wants. You just give a woman this and she's, oh, great, content. No such thing.
Yeah, hell
It
no.
don't exist. Women, we might not like their nature, but they serve a purpose. They serve this vital function of ensuring that men stay absolutely as masculine as possible, because when you move away from it, everything starts to devolve. Everything starts to
Chaos.
disintegrate.
Yeah. That's no joke.
To lose sense, to lose form.
It just falls apart.
And women thrive in those environments. The feminine thrives in those environments. These videos that I watch of women making their heads completely in the clouds, completely delusional, oblivious. They're making videos saying exactly the same things that men say about women. We're saying that they're trash because they actually are. That they have all these requirements. They're so entitled when they're bringing absolutely zero to the table aside from C cups and an ass that looks impeccable in yoga pants. Other than that, they're an absolute spawn of Lucifer. We're saying this. Women, they must be seeing this stuff that we're doing, and then they mirror it to deceive us. They want to play with our minds, and so they start saying things like, oh, men are trash. Oh,
Men are
men are
trash.
faking it. Oh, men don't have this or that. They're all just garbage inside. Oh, they might have money, blah, 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 blah. You need to detach.
Anybody who really and truly honestly cares what women on the internet say, don't take their advice. Don't listen to that person. Because they're morons, to be honest with you. Every time, I mean, it's like the stupidest shit that is said on the internet is said by females. I think everybody would agree with that. I mean, they will say things that get them thrown in jail. You know, they'll break the law live on a stream. You know, it's like, it's pretty incredible that you could be that stupid.
You need to vet them. You need to do all this stuff, bitch. We see what you're doing. This is gaslighting on an 1,000 level.
Yeah, they think they're slick.
And because we're retaining our seed, you need to be retaining your seed if you're a man, in my
You
opinion.
need to
You
not
have
talk
to be
about that with
retaining your
me,
seed
my dude,
because you
please.
start to see this stuff.
It's a little creepy.
This
Not digging it.
feminist hellhole matrix starts to crumble. And you start to see what women are really doing. You start to see who they actually are. You start to look past their flesh, look past their face. And it's horrifying.
Yeah. Yeah, it
And
is.
the whole thing that women
Out
are
of
gonna try to do
anything.
for the rest of your life is they're gonna try to convince you. They won't even know that they're doing it. It's literally innate in them.
Yeah,
They do it
they do.
automatically.
Yeah.
They don't even know that they're doing it. They're too chaotic to see what's going on.
Right, they're pure instinct.
They're going to try to convince you
Mm-hmm.
through all their methods: flattery,
Oh, yeah,
guilt,
for sure.
shame,
Seduction.
absence, sex,
Yeah,
withholdance of sex,
yeah.
all these different things.
Yeah.
Disrespect.
Ugh,
They're
emasculation.
going to try to get you to start buying into what they're saying,
Yeah.
believing them.
As soon as you do that, ooh, boy.
They're going to try
Ooh.
to get you.
That's the thing. That's the trap. That is the trap. They're going to ask for something, ask for something, ask for something, ask for something, and as long as you don't give them that thing, you're literally a god. The very second that you give that to them, you've lost. You've lost them. The very second. It's like when I think about women, you know what I think about? I think about that scene in Jurassic Park when Dr. Grant looks at the owner, the rich guy, and he says, or no, he looks at Muldoon and Muldoon says, yeah, They've been systematically testing the fences. And he looks over. They test the fences? Yes. You know, I mean, that is how I picture females as a whole. Um, as raptors testing the fences, or like a pack of dog a dog sled pack, a dog sled pack. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know if any of you guys ever read Jack London's Call of the Wild, but anytime there was a showdown or a fight, whoever lost that fight was for dinner that evening. You know, the pack swoops in and they finished you off once you were too weak to defend yourself. I guess in a dog eat dog world, um, you're eaten once you're that weak. Typically, that only happens when the alpha male is involved. I believe. I think. Pretty sure it doesn't end up in death unless it's with the alpha male. Like unless it's a struggle for the apex. That's the only time they kill the other one off is when, he's arrived. But yeah, that's how I think of women. They're a very cutthroat lot. Um, there is no sisterhood. There is no mercy. There is no conscience. And it's that way for a reason. That is a feature, not a bug. It's a feature, not a bug, I repeat. Because supposedly, women had to be, quick to move on because, you know, their male might go off and get killed in war, or the other tribe next door might kill him and then take her, and she would have to accept it. So, there's a real world application for it, which makes it honestly, that really, to my mind, that means there's nothing we can do. We can't fix them. They can't be fixed. That's always going to be there. She's never going to mourn you. Like if you died tomorrow, she's going to get married next year. Rightfully so. Because if this was, you know, medieval times or, ancient times, the species would die off. But it's just kind of that's like one of those black pill kind of feelings, I guess. I don't know. I get that sometimes and it's pretty lame. Pretty lame. I don't like it at all. But anyway, earlier there was a bunch of douchebags on here. Or like I'll go on X and I see it as more like a safari thing, like I'm going on safari. Um, I'll I mean, I just scroll and scroll and scroll until, or it really doesn't take that long. It might be the first post until I have something to say. And what's funny about it is I was laughing with my mother about it a while ago. How probably what has gotten me in the most trouble throughout the course of my life, and what has been the main source of resistance in my life on Twitter, is actually how you make money. That's the only thing you can monetize with Twitter is having a big mouth. Like, I just, that really blew my mind. I was like, in no other place, in no other world, in no other timeline could this be a moneymaker. You know what I mean? Like, I just thought that, I mean, I just thought that was kind of funny. It's just kind of a funny observation to my mind. But, like these people, they make these stupid comments, and yeah. There was just a few that I wanted to point out. Like with Homath. I guess this guy is copying him. You can't all demand top tier men. Oh, yeah, yeah, he's right. Mathematically, it doesn't work. Well, yeah, no crap. Hmm. I said, what a piece of trash. I thought about trying to emulate its Homath when he went viral, but it would have taken the same amount of effort to steal someone else's shtick as it would to make my own. I mean, who wants to be a phony? Why would I want to put effort into being a phony? You may as well just put a bullet in your head. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't want to have live life any other way. I don't know why white folks want to step on Michelle Obama so bad. Y'all still mad she wanted y'all fat ass kids to move around every day and eat less sugar. That was 15 years ago. Our fat ass kids? Look here, Negro. You and Yorn are by far the high, like a much higher rate of obesity. So, coming at honestly, like, they will take an objective observation and then they will just color it so they will put so much lipstick on that pig that some people are swayed by it. And I just don't get that. I don't get that. How is that possible? That people are swayed by this garbage. It's garbage, and oh, it's drivel. I mean, you got to be a moron to fall for some of the stuff these people talk about. And it's like these super lightly veiled propaganda. I mean, it's just I don't know. I don't get it. Most people don't even remember when she was first lady. Fact check, true. Most people really don't ever think about her. Facts. She was totally forgotten until recently when she started trying to push herself on us. She's just a miserable, whiny, ultra rich, old such and such. Tell me where I'm wrong. She complains about paying for food, you know? She complains more than people that are terminal. It's it's sad. It's sad. I mean, I wish the best for her. I think it's awful that she's such a malcontent. That's not healthy. Being a malcontent, it's not healthy. It's not good for you. That's why it's called a malcontent. It doesn't have a crappy name. It doesn't have a name that's suggestive of bad for no reason. Four things about Trump. He's not very intelligent, not well educated, he's a pathological liar, he's a malignant narcissist. And it's just funny, but it's like I think his past opponents would disagree with that statement. I'm pretty sure Hillary would disagree with the statement that he is a moron. And not only that, but to say that about him when they put up Kamala, that one was a retard. She was a retard, man. I mean, whoa, she was stupid. Without Medicaid, mothers like Charlotte won't be able to afford the medical care for their children need. We can't leave these families behind. To take it away would to take it away completely would just be devastating. Okay. And that's your assessment. That's your appraisal. You're not going to die. You're not going to die, woman. You're not going to die. You're going to get on with it. Charlotte Craven's, Landry's mother, who said that even with private health insurance, her family had been on the verge of bankruptcy from her son's hospital bills until they were approved for Medicaid coverage. You know, it's a shame that bad things happen to good people, but they do. They do. And giving the government more power isn't going to change that. There's nothing we can do to change that. We can't change the world. We cannot change human nature. We cannot change the fact that bad things happen. We are not gods. We sure do fancy ourselves that way, though, don't we? I mean, it's just wild to me. It's so arrogant. Sometimes I get pretty worked up, but I'm sure there will be adversity. There always is adversity. Life is adversity. Life is on the edge. If that's not life for you, then you're not living life, really, I would say, honestly. Even, like, this is just nothing more than a crutch, and that's why I brought up Jesus. Like, excuse me, when he went to the, I think what was it, the pool at Bethesda in the book? He went to that pool, and he tells that man to get up off the ground and walk. That he should try to walk. And he does. Because that crutch him and that crutch had convinced him that he couldn't do without it. That he couldn't survive without it. And that just wasn't so. And we all hate change. We all hate change. And that was considered a miracle that Jesus performed there about getting that guy to walk. Really, that guy could walk. He just didn't have the motivation for one. He didn't have the faith for another. But that was a miracle, because without Jesus, he never would have walked again. He would have been a cripple for the rest of his life. To say that the miracles Jesus performed never happened is to be ignorant. Because, what the modern dictionary says miracle means doesn't necessarily mean that's not what the word miracle means when they say Jesus performed miracles. When they say miracles, they mean he changed someone's life forever by talking to them. That's what they mean by miracles, in my opinion, in my humble opinion. I may be wrong, but I think Jesus was a very insightful person that understood human beings and understood that a lot of the times the maladies that afflict us are in our heads. And he could see that. And he also, I think, could tell that the only way to get people to change meaning in a meaningful way and for a long time, or, like over the arc of history, was to show like real courage, like to sacrifice yourself, to say, you know what? I know how I can fix this, but it's going to require sacrifice. And he did it, and it straight up changed the planet forever. That's how smart that man was. Let's say, that in a totally secular view of things, he was so smart and so insightful and perceptive that by the age of 30, he was able to transform the species forever. Forever. That's pretty wild. That's you got to be a smart dude. And you got to be cognitively operating at a pretty high level. And I truly believe that that he spent a lot of time in thought and in isolation. Like it even says it in the Bible. But this is a person that turned that magnifying glass in on himself. He turned it on the people around him. The perceptiveness, and he reflected like so much that he was able to see problems that nobody else saw. Think of this. At that time, it was legal to kill somebody. It was legal to go out into the street and kill it and have a duel. As long as you were consenting, you could settle your arguments legally by murdering one or the other, one of each other, by murdering. That was acceptable. That was considered normal. He changed that forever. He called upon people to rise above what we were at one point. Okay, we can't change what we are physically, but we can change how we think and how we, like he obviously he realized that, wow, people really treat each other like garbage. I mean, they will kill each other. And people will watch over a disagreement. And he said, I'm sure he thought to himself, if people just showed the tiniest bit of consideration for one another, the world would be so much better. If every single human being became just even one increment, I don't care the size of the increment, if they become one increment better, the force multiplying effects over the population, that changes what it's like to live amongst people, what it's like to live in this world. That's what that does. That changes the world. And he was able to do something so charismatic that it spread like a virus across a world where the only way to get somewhere was to physically put one foot in front of the other, or to get another animal to do that for you. And to my mind, that is godly. That is godly. I don't care what anybody says. That is godly. That, and I believe in God absolutely and 100%. But even if we strip that away, the religious aspect of it, the supernatural aspect of it, that man was so special that he was a god. He was a god. In purely physical, materialistic terms, he was a god. Because we live, we open doors for one another. We live amongst each other without abrasion. We don't kill each other in grocery stores. That's because of him. Legitimately. The guy deserves true recognition for what he did. Because he called on people to be better. You can do better. You don't have to do the bad thing every time. You know? Yeah, I mean, because that's how it was. It was a very dog eat dog world. Think of Roman times. That was a rough place to be. I can tell you that much. Pretty much everybody in your vicinity it was dog eat dog. They were looking to get you. They were looking to see you dead and acquire your property. That make no mistake. Make no mistake. That is what humans are. I remember my dad telling me that about in Poland in World War II. That it was it was Jewish people's neighbors that turned them in. They were lynch mobs. They turned them in because they wanted their stuff. The Nazis said, "Hey, if you tell us which one of who the Jews are in the community, you guys get to have their stuff." Oh, they turned them over immediately, just like that, just like that. And people, they have the gall to say they would hide Anne Frank in their attic when they think the baseline is that you just go about your business, your daily business. No, the baseline was turning in people. That was the baseline. That was the norm. It was abnormal to not turn people in. And it was even almost non-existent to harbor enemies of the state. Quote unquote enemies of the state. But, so like, it just, I don't know, the arrogance of people, it never ceases to amaze me how incredibly arrogant people are. And sometimes, and that's the only reason why I get on X, because I think those balloons should be popped. I think they should be popped. You know, we should not have any illusions. They don't serve us. Being delusional, that doesn't serve anyone. That's what Don Quixote was about. I mean, it just doesn't. You have to take stock. You have to make an appraisal. Take inventory. And I do believe that's kind of what sets the English apart from a lot of other peoples, is that they were supremely good at organization and administration. Much like Germans, they're very uh, eccentric in that way, if you will. Just the dearth of documentation of all the stuff they did in World War II, it basically betrays them. They were so bureaucratic, in a sense, that they hung themselves with it. And I think that is kind of where that's like the English, they take it, they have, they're not quite as strict. The Germans, they're kind of a martial people. They're very much so a martial people. Corporal punishment, um, suffering in silence. Like there's I think it's almost like a cultural meme for them when people complain. That's kind of a cultural meme for them. They regard that as disdainful and with disgust. That if you have an issue with life, that you should just keep it to yourself. Um, that they don't want to hear it. And I get that. I do. I get it. But that's not. Thank God that's not how it is where I live. Thank God that America's not that way. And people have often thought us weak for allowing our people to speak their minds. But we've seen all of them off. We've seen them all off. None of them exist anymore. All those people that thought we were weak because we allowed or that we have the rights and the freedom to say how we feel to our government. That we don't have to bite our tongue when we discuss our officials. That we know and they know that they can be dead at any time. People revolt, you know, people fight back eventually. Even, even the most sternest, the most harshest, most hard jackbooted thug can be overthrown. That's been proven time and again. And, and people have talked smack about Americans for a long time, but, either they're gone or they're whoever they are in the world now, which isn't us, I mean, and I don't want to, I'm not, I don't think, that we don't have our problems, or anything like that, but I certainly don't, would not want to live anywhere else. I mean, certainly not. And which kind of, it's kind of funny how all these protests, and it really shows the true colors of people, because I don't know if anybody's noticed, but you've got Democrats and you've got Mexicans, and they're basically saying that all of a sudden America's evil. All of a sudden, like, wonder why, when they start getting deported and they show their true colors, they start saying how they really feel and what they really think of us, what they really think of America, what they're really doing here. They're here to plunder and pilfer. They say it openly in videos. And the only reason they're here is because the shithole they came from is such a shithole. Which kind of begs the question, if it's such a shithole there, why do you think America sucks exactly? And what is the yardstick that you're using to determine this with? Because as far as I can tell, these people, they can't get their own shit together in their own countries. I mean, and it's honestly, instead of sticking it out and doing the right thing, sticking it out and making your own America wherever you're from, that is the right thing to do. To go slither into America like a snake. I'll say it again, like a snake. There's nothing. Illegal immigrants are snakes. I mean, I don't really care what anybody else. I mean, that is the most slithering, snakish, disgusting thing to do. I think that's some of the one of the lowest things you can do. I mean, it's just so pathetic. And the fact that they've gotten this entitlement from it too. It's not just that they're here, but that they're here and they have a shit attitude as well. And they poison the well. One bad apple spoils the bunch, as they say. Well, that's why these apples, they're getting the hell out, And every time I see it, they try to play on our feelings, showing some mom being taken away from her sons in class, and she's speaking Spanish like crying, and she's fighting the ICE officials, and I'm thinking, where was all this thought and fire and blunder and blusterousness? Where was all this energy when you came here and took that risk of being separated from your kid? Because you took the risk. You knew. You knew. Don't pretend that you didn't know there wasn't a chance you could get sent back. There's no place on earth that's not the case. And to throw this fit is disingenuous, to say the least. They know the risk they're taking. They deem it worth the risk. They've been saying that the whole time. Since Mexicans have immigrated here, they've said it's worth the risk. It's worth the risk. Yeah, we'll get shipped back if they catch us, but it's better than being home. I mean, it's worth the risk. and then to throw this big tantrum and then try to tug at our heartstrings about it's like, no, you made a poor decision. Now you want me to feel bad because you made such you put your kid's life or your kid's livelihood or your relationship, you put that at risk. That's you're just an evil, you're a bad person. You're a bad mother, you're a bad person, and you should be shipped home. And hopefully your kid goes with you too. But honestly, if not, maybe that is best for him because you're a bad person. I mean, you're a bad person to just come over. They know the risk. They know the risk. They know that they could get shipped back. The ones that have been here for 20 years, that have 4 or 5 kids that are citizens, they have a house, think of all the crimes that they've committed. Like all the snakish, underhanded, back alley purchases and money changing hands. Like we tax all those things and we pay those taxes, damn it. I bet we pay all these property taxes. We pay all the fees and stuff that are involved with living. To live in this country ain't cheap. We don't see it as a cost because it's like the air we breathe. We don't have a choice. That's the way it is. Our parents paid mortgages. Our parents they paid taxes to keep their property. They paid a couple grand a year usually to keep whatever property they have, just to have it. You lose the property if you don't, like it costs money to have property. And those people, that money's going to some criminal. Criminal. They are a criminal, and then they're going to another criminal so that they can buy houses and that they can get along in America illegally. So that's why we call them illegals, because they have to do everything illegally. And imagine that, though, how that scales and in aggregate. Millions of people, all the revenue, these tax-paying immigrants, these tax-paying migrants, they pay all their taxes, they pay. Bullshit. Bullshit. They do not pay all the taxes that we pay. What? Like, and the people that fall for this nonsense are people that don't pay those taxes themselves. Truly. Truly. Because anybody with any sense, when they see those taxes for the first time, they're like, whoa. What, really? Like, it is a bit of a rude awakening. It does suck. But this is a pretty decent place to be. And it's worth the price of admission. 'Tis. That thing Arnold said the other day on The View. My God. What a hallelujah moment. And couldn't have happened to a better guy either. Because he really fell off there for a while. I mean, this guy was my hero, man. I was born in 90. And that was just at the tail end of his career. Twins, Kindergarten Cop, stuff like that. Jingle All the Way, which was garbage with that dude Sinbad, garbage. But this guy was my hero. I mean, in Predator, what? That movie is maybe one of the greatest action movies, one of the greatest sci-fi movies ever made. And it's so simple. But man, they struck gold. Sometimes a story, it just never gets old. You might get tired of watching it. You might watch it too many times in too short of a span. But that puts you off. You're, I don't feel like imbibing that for a few years, and then something like pulls you into it somehow, and you're like, man, I forgot how good this movie was. This movie just what? It brings to mind You know, on those verbatim CDs where you got the little guy sitting back and his hair's being blown back by the sound system he's listening to. You know, sometimes I see a movie and, you know, that's how I feel about it. Like, whoa, you know, it really blows my hair back. And I really live for those experiences, actually. That's why I typically watch movies I haven't seen by myself, which I know it's a little weird, but I don't know. I like to be able to focus. Like I saw Dark Knight by myself. No, Inception. I saw Inception by myself, and I remember everybody being like, "What? You went to the movie theater by yourself?" I'm like, "Hell yeah, I went to the movie theater." What? You damn right, I went to the movie by myself. That's the best way to go. As a kid, there was like a movie theater like a mile from my house, and it was like $5 a ticket. And once you know, the movies they usually, you know, all the other new movie theaters had stadium seating, stuff like that. This one was old. You know, it had been there a while. People used to smoke in that place. But it was the bus that passed my school dropped off in front of my house, the city bus. Literally, you know, it was like I could pay a quarter get from school to home for a quarter. Well, I would skip school, you know, and I would go to that movie theater. But it was funny because the bus would come every half hour from my school, but about halfway in between, every other bus went one way, and the bus in the next 30 minutes went the other way. So it was like every 30 minutes they took a different route, but it was only for like a mile or two. And that movie theater, it was on one of the it was in that little half mile stretch there. So it that the bus for that movie theater only came once every half hour or once every hour rather than once every half hour. But I remember I saw that movie with Eddie Griffith where he played, it was a Shaft knockoff. It was a parody of Shaft. Uh Undercover Brother or some such nonsense. But yeah, like you know, I would go see movies by myself. You know, and then once you paid for the one ticket, you know, there were nobody really cared. I would just go watch every other movie in the theater. Um, I really, I really enjoy. I'm a movie person, and I really love that theater. And I didn't realize how much I loved it until it was gone. It was so cheap too. $5 got you in. Everybody else was charging 15. Can you beat that? And this is when I would go up there with my friends on a Friday night and use the payphone to call my mom for a ride home. You know, it was before phones. It was such a simple era, such a simple time to be in, and it is saddening how everything has just it's become so complex that we can't agree on anything. There isn't an object that we can agree on. We can't agree on the color of this lighter. You know, that's how complex life is. That there are two dominant views. There are two dominant lenses with which to see life through. They're at odds with each other. And you know, you see life through one or the other. But that's how complex life is now. You know, life was simple enough just a few years ago that where people actually agreed on shit. You know, you got unanimous agreement on things. Not that long ago. Not that long ago, in fact. You know, and it's crazy. I mean, I wonder, like I like talking to older people because they've seen more than one has, than you have or than I have, typically, an older person has. Like I was talking to a lady that had that there are very few or Florida natives, Central Florida natives, very few, almost non-existent actually. I happen to be one, but and also one of my coworkers, he's one as well, which is kind of weird. But we're anyway, this we were doing work at this lady's house. She was a Florida native. She was in a an automatic wheelchair. She was as sweet as a button, man. She was the sweetest old lady you ever saw. And my boss, his father started the business, and his father came by to see her. His dad's like semi-retired, and like that's how long he's like she's been having work done by him, like that he personally sees to her account. When I think she doesn't have much longer to go. I don't think her husband is alive anymore, and I'm pretty sure because the way that she spoke about Florida, it was a bygone way. Like she knew she was over, and she knew that her way of life was over, that her people were over, and things had changed. That's the way, because I was reminiscing with her about this, because my parents weren't born here, but my parents have both been here, or had both been here since the '60s. So my parents, I've seen this place just totally explode with pop. I mean, it was like pretty small. I mean, it wasn't all that happening when I was a kid. Now it's like whoa, it's like a kind of a big city down. It's ridiculous. It's just and it's doubled in size, population, and square miles. I mean, it's just straight up doubled, man. Just. I remember when the coasts, like one coast was about 45 minutes, and the other coast was about an hour and a half. Man, from the edge of town to like there's this big there's a highway that goes from the Central Florida to the to Cocoa Beach, Titusville, somewhat near Daytona, and there's just nothing on this highway for miles. It's a good 30 minutes of just palmettos, saw palms, or saw palmettos they call them. They're smaller shrub-like palm trees, and then sable palms, regular palm trees, and marsh, big open marshland, where it's just water and grass, water with patches of grass in it and stuff. Lots of that, which is the St. Johns River Basin, by the way. But it's like 30 minutes of nothing. But in the course of my life, I've literally seen that gap get whacked in half, like straight up. The town has grown half that gap, and I'm thinking like, in another 20 years, are is the coast just going to be incorporated in the city, or like what? How does that work exactly? Do they? I guess they just call it the tri-state, or no, no, not tri-state, the metro, metro area or whatever. They use that term now, and it's ridiculous. But it's just like goodness gracious, how quickly things expand, how quickly we just sprawl, and it's wild. It really is, and I must say though, and the lady had this just absolutely gorgeous piece of property. I mean, oh man, uh, I was in awe. I'm not even gonna lie, I was in awe. Maybe one of the most beautiful pieces of property I've ever seen in my life. And and she had a house with a tin roof. It was an old cracker house. And she had this sweet old southern drawl, and it was really nice to see this lady actually. I'm glad that I got to meet her because we had a good conversation, and you could tell she was out watching us work, so she needed some company. And my boss was like, "Hey, be take care of her." And I'm that way anyway. I've run my own business before, and my mom is in customer service. For some reason, I just, I naturally am very good with people in a business setting, like customers and stuff. For some reason, but it's just really nice, and even what, like the amount that where I live has changed in half a century is almost unfathomable. I can't imagine that she ever thought that she would see such a drastic difference. Because like the norm is that nothing changes. Human beings, cities, things didn't change. People don't move out of their towns. They stay right where they're at. The cities don't get bigger. Or humans do the whole stagnant thing for hundreds of thousands of years. And only very I get as far as we know, it really never happens except for this time, that we actually broke out of the whole dark ages and stuff, and then, like they say, to the moon kind of thing. But I mean, I tend to think that it's going to keep expanding like that. But lately, I've been thinking, am I right about that though? Is that the way it is? Is that how it's going to go? Because I'm not so sure anymore. I'm not. I'm not so sure that we're gonna. I mean, I think we kind of hold the like, if we continue to excel as Americans, the world will continue. If we fail to, the world will fail. That's kind of how I see it. Because I mean, the Chinese, they kind of have their stuff together, but they have never been able to invent. They've never had that ability really, and they know that. They do the whole copyright thing where they steal our stuff, but and I think it kind of bothers me how nonchalant sometimes politicians are about China, like, oh, they're China, blah blah blah. And it's like, no, 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 no. You don't act that way about rivals, man, because that's how you get knocked off. You know, when you start discounting your rivals, you start getting knocked off, and I don't want that. But like, they have never really had the ability to come up with stuff. They copy us. It's like that's why they're always one step behind us. And every now and again they surprise us with how quickly they've closed some sort of a gap. But they never actually, when have they ever brought about ingenuity or uh change in a positive way? I can't, the word escapes me at the moment, but when have they ever been at the cutting edge of design or inventions? I don't think they ever have been, as far as I know, and especially not as of late. And you would think with a million people, or a billion people, that they would have the human capital necessary to come up with new stuff. But that's not what it is. What it is an ethos. It's the same thing with America. It's like, America's not land. It's not an idea. It's a way of life and a way of looking at life. That's what America is. America lives in you, and it lives in me, and it lives in every other American. Without us, there is no America. And that's the thing. That's why it's a big deal, because we carry that way of being, and nobody else can do it for us. Nobody else can do it for us. And what do they say? God save America. Or God bless America, as well as God save America. Truly.